remastering your bedroom demo 2019 versus today. Alright, so what are we talking about? 2019, I did this bedroom demo of this like sad girl song my wife was singing, and I'd never heard it before, and I was like, that sounds like this kind of like spaghetti western type song. And she's like, that's not what it sounds like at all. And so I proceeded to make this like disco country version of the song in the middle of the night in my bedroom in 2019, and I tried to master it, but I didn't really have anything set up right. I wasn't really taking my time doing it correctly because I was only in that apartment for a couple months, and I was just like, oh, this is just some funny thing. So when I got my new speakers here, I got these Yamaha HS8s. Here's my cat, Greta, one of my cats. And then I got all these SSL plugins from Solid State Logic. I figured it was an opportunity to remix something that sounded like total shit and see if I could do a good job mastering it with the analog mojo of these Solid State Logic plugins. So I like how they came out. Let's take another listen to these two. So 2019, I'm going to turn the headphone volume down here. You might want to do the same thing. Let's listen. I was reading some. All right, so that has like a vibe to it. It has like a mojo, like of a kind of blown out transistor radio, sort of. It just, yeah, I mean, it's cool, but like I remember trying to listen to it in a car once, and the treble was like so harsh. It was bad. Like it just like, you can't turn it up very loud before you just get like extreme ear fatigue. And so let's take a listen to the same little section of the song with the new version of the master. Oop, that's not it. Here we go.
I was reading some errands and I got to thinking that I thought maybe I'd get less stress if I was tested less like all of those debutantes.
So yeah, it sounds nice and clean and clear to me. It's got like a real heavy, like thick low end. And yeah, I mean, there's some things that I definitely got to do way differently. Like a lot more simply, actually. I'm going to pull up the remix. So this project was a little weird. It was like primarily written with MIDI, which I don't usually do, but it was like a bedroom demo. Definitely couldn't record drums in there. So, you know, it's like a drum machine and like these fake horns and these keyboards for like the kind of arpeggiator synth. And like basically what I did is use stuff like the 4K, which is like a analog console channel strip. I didn't really use the EQ too much for this. I think I used it for the Listen mic preamp to add some grit to it and some width. And then like use things like the bus compressor for the horns. And I used a lot of this flex verb, this mix gel, which I tweaked a bit on all of them to sort of tie them together, make them sound like they're in the same room. drum machine, I use this high frequency compressor for the really harsh hi-hats. It's like a de-esser. The tube compressor to make it more like pumping, and then the same flex verb. So it's just like kind of simple stuff like that. So one thing I did do is I re-recorded the guitar because the old guitar was like out of tune. And I tried to take a very simple approach to that as well. Oh, this is actually the bass track. I used the 4K on that to try to get like a more old school bass sound. This is the original guitar track, which is completely direct in, so that's why it looks like a bunch of sharp spikes. So I played it like through the PV Bandit, like clean, more clean this time. I think I used the Dead Air Intentions just a little bit to sweeten it up. And yeah, I really only used like the 4K, and then on the solo, I think I may have used the leveling amplifier. Yes, it's this leveling amplifier. I hadn't downloaded the one from SSL yet, the Blitzer, but I always like using this for vocals. It's from Black Rooster Audio. It's just like a simple, old school type, like limiter compressor type thing. It's just real easy to use. And so I use that to kind of hammer out the dynamics in the guitar solo and just use the 4K for EQ. And so all that's just sort of bounced down into this one section, which kind of just like goes up to this blue or pink part here. And then it just became a matter of, or maybe it's this yellow part. Damn it. Anyway, kind of to chop it up and put it into sections to make it into the rest of the song. And even on the track, I just kind of used the 4K. I consider putting reverb on it. I just wanted to like beef up the track a little bit, make it stand out. And then the vocals, I used Karen's like bedroom take from 2019 and used the leveling amplifier, the channel strip 2, which is like a more modern version of the 4K, the high frequency compressor as a de-esser, and then that same reverb. So we got like a bunch of tracks there. You know, she had all these good takes from back then. Sort of put them together, like flatten them out, like just ran them all into the same bus. And so I just tried to simplify it as much as possible. I know in 2019, I had the tendency to kind of like try to overdo things sometimes to just make them sound crazy and blown out all the time. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. There's a lot of plugins here that I use for mastering as well. Let me just play a little bit more of the song here.
Smiling for miles in pink dresses and high heels on white yachts. Baby, I'm not. Baby, I'm not. No, I'm not. That I'm not. I've been tearing around with my fucking nightgown, 24/7 Sylvia Black, writing in blood on the walls 'cause the ink in my pen don't work in my notepad.
So yeah, it sounds cool to me. So there's all these plugins here on this. It's kind of like they all have very subtle effects. A bunch of them are part of one that's like one actual hardware module that SSL sells in like real life, and they seek to emulate the different parts of the signal chain and the actual electronic components as well. This is just the 4K I used as an EQ, and I used the expander to lower the noise floor. I really didn't use the EQ too much. I used this Logic multi-compressor or multipressor, just sort of a final pop compressor, like preset to sort of clean it up. I think I may have tweaked it a little bit. I used it to sort of like figure out what the different frequency ranges sound like, and how they react with my new speakers as well, by like soloing each of the frequency bands. And then the vintage drive. So maybe I should be demoing these. They all kind of have like subtle effects. So let me just go to the beginning of the song and play a little bit. And Here's the beginning of the song. Okay, there it is, exported from the mix with no mastering stuff on it. So this is just the 4K. This really only just pulls out a bit of the 250K to clean it up. I thought I would need to boost the high end or the upper mid range, but I didn't. And then I used the expander, like I said. So real subtle. It really becomes more important when it gets smashed into the limiter at the end. The multipressor. Again, it's subtle. You're going to have to wear headphones to hear some of this stuff. So then the vintage drive.
I was reading some errands and I got to thinking that I thought maybe I'd get less stress if I was to sit less.
That just puts like a little vintage hair on it. So the vintage drive is the first of those like hardware emulation components of this like mastering rack mount unit that SSL sells. So this one is not part of that. I love this saturator thing, so check it out. It just adds these like second and third order harmonic distortion to the mix, and it really does a good job of like boosting upper mid-range frequencies and vocals and guitars and stuff without having to get crazy with EQ, and it like gives it more of an analog feel. So I love that one.
I was reading some and I got to thinking that I thought.
So the Violet EQ, this is the EQ part of that mastering hardware rack mount thing I keep talking about. There I am. All right, I guess I'm just not on the screen. There we go. So this just does the high and the low. I kind of used a preset that I messed with a little bit. I was using a lot of presets because I'm still learning how it's working as a plugin, and then how it works with my speakers. So with a lot of these plugins from SSL, like once you kind of figure them out, you can really just use your ear more so than a lot of other ones that I've used in Logic, or like those other ones from Black Rooster Audio. So this has a more significant
maybe I get less stress if I was to sit less like
effect on the mix for sure. So this high frequency compressor, this is like the DS.
Those debutantes smiling for miles in pink dresses and high heels on white.
Oh wait, it's still not on.
Baby, I'm not. Baby, I'm.
So I don't know if other engineers do this. Sometimes I'll be like toggling something back and forth. I'm like, yeah, that sounds different. And it's like not even on. So I just got to catch myself, make sure I'm not doing that.
I'm not. No, I'm not.
So I'm using this old cassette plug-in thing. It just rounds off the high end. So I mean, I'm boosting up the high end to get the mastering sheen on it. But then you got to kind of like bring it back in certain places so it doesn't scratch your ears out. So this is the stereo widening effect. This is also part of the hardware rack mount thing.
I'm not. I've been tearing around with my fucking nightgown 24/7 to be.
So again, that's pretty subtle. I already widened the guitars a bunch using the width control and the 4K mixing channel strip. So I didn't go too crazy. And then this is interesting. I thought this was like bullshit. But I just figured I'd try it out because I saw how it was like part of that rack mount hardware thing. Again, like this is supposed to emulate the actual transformer that they used for the power, which apparently affects the signal in some way. And again, it's subtle. It like works on like the phase of the high end, and like in some way that like the sag on the low end or something like that. Make sure it's on. And then so yeah, then of course there's the limiter, which I have set a lot of gain smashing into like a very shallow threshold, non-existent threshold. I have it on auto just because I want it to kind of be as unnoticeable as possible, and to get it as loud as possible. Oh yeah, watch your ears, turn the volume down.
I can say I'm not sad, 'cause it's a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have.
So you can see the how these plugins affect things a bit more when it, you're smashing into the limiter. So that's when it really starts mattering more.
Oh, it's a dangerous thing for a woman like me to have.
Oh, it's a dangerous thing for someone like her to have. Oh, it's a dangerous thing for someone with her eyes.
I had 15-year dances.
So that vocal part that I did, that's like what I heard in my head. It was like this weird sort of like cinematic country call and response thing, and like my wife was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" So I just had to do it. It's my favorite part. Besides my wife did a lot of really cool singing in it. Let's see, where did I leave off? So
Church basement romances, yeah, I've cried. Spilling my guts with the Bowery Bums is the only love I've ever known. Except for the stage, which I also go home when I'm not serving up.
So what I've learned about mastering is, is a lot of real little subtle steps instead of like fewer heavy-handed steps. So this kind of breaks it down even further than I've ever gone before, with all these like sort of very subtle components that affect the mix and the way that the low and high frequencies respond, and stuff that I didn't even consider being a factor before. And I think Solid State Logic has done a really good job with like making that stuff easy to use and not too overwhelming and cluttered. Like having it all in one place in like one plugin screen would be difficult. Like having it on one rack mount makes sense, but yeah, it'd be a bit much otherwise. So I'm available to remix and remaster your bedroom demo. If you'd like to get my services to do this, please hit me up. I should probably put this at the beginning of the video too. So